Kleynhans, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Nico, good morning.
Good morning to you and also to the listeners.
Isn't that the title of a 1966 Western movie?
Yes, it is. And I chose that because I spend a lot of my life analyzing news. And news falls into three categories. There's just plain bad, there's ugly news, and then there's good news as well. And sometimes, if I don't keep a balance on that, I'm going to want to jump off the roof. But this week, the bad news was what is happening in Prince George Drive. The gangsters are stopping taxis in Prince George Drive. And because the taxi owners are not prepared to pay protection money, they are making the passengers alight from the taxis and walk home. And they're doing this because they've got weapons. And during the past few weeks, the taxi owners had all their weapons confiscated. So we've got one side with weapons and one side without weapons. Now it's a matter of time before the taxi owners get new weapons. And when that happens, we're going to have problems. So I'm hoping in the next day or two, somehow this mess is going to get resolved, because the passengers at the end of the day are suffering now, and quite possibly some of them could lose their lives if this kind of intimidation continues. So that's my bad news for this week. Then we come against the ugly. The Minister of Electricity is very confused. He's also confused by South Africans, because on the 1st of April, he was wondering why we are moaning when we have electricity for 18 hours a day. I kid you not. He thinks we should be grateful that we've got electricity for 18 hours a day. The fact that 6 hours we don't have electricity doesn't seem to bother him. This is the minister appointed for electricity. Now that the state of disaster has been cancelled, I'm hoping he's going to lose his job, because quite frankly, I'm not sure what he's actually contributing to the problem. So for me, that's part of the ugly. Then we have the Minister of Finance. His take on Eskom is quite different. He's decided that for the next 2 to 4 years, Eskom need not report on any criminal activity within its ranks. And if it doesn't report on it, then we won't know about it. And if we don't know about it, then investors will invest in Eskom. That's how his logic is going. So if we hide the truth, investors will spend money on Eskom. Where is the ethics in this kind of thing? So from the leadership, from the Minister of Finance, he is saying it's okay to tell a lie because I've given you permission to do so. This is part of the ugly. Now, since then, he's had a Damascus moment. And even he has realized he cannot do that. That by doing that, he's actually tying the ruling party to criminal activity. And that is not okay. And he needs to learn this lesson. And it is wrong that he expects the entire country to shut our eyes because he thinks it's okay to do so. It is not. Eskom is stealing our money. And the people within that company who is doing that needs to be named, identified, and they need to pay the price of criminal activities. So are we going to get an apology? No, we're not. We're going to get a lot of public relations people explaining what cannot be explained. Will his explanation give us any kind of peace of mind? No, I don't believe it. But now I want to come to the good.
Thank goodness for the good.
I watched a video the other day by CCFm. You released it. It was a worship service that was held in some public event. There were a few thousand people who attended. And this video was just of the group of people leaving the venue. What a joy it was to see the complete ecstasy of the participants. What a joy it was to see the effect that had on the participants. And again, one is reminded that in God's presence, it is so much different to what it is in a secular world where crime and bad behavior is the normal. Over the past weekend, we decided to invite a house church to our home to celebrate. And as I walked into the lounge, as everybody was settling, my first thought was, how did so many kids fit in 4 motor cars? Because there were a lot of kids. But as the testimony started and those beautiful harmonies in 3 different languages, I was actually moved to tears. As I then again was reminded of the incredible power that is present in any home when people worship and when people experience the joy of God. One of the testimonies I found interesting. One of the ladies who regularly has to take a taxi prays on the side of the road and asks God which taxi she must get into. And she won't get into it until she has the nudge. She got the nudge and she got into the taxi. And she sat there talking to one of the passengers. And as the passenger got out, a cell phone dropped on the floor, her cell phone. She picked it up and she said, "Thank you, Jesus, I've got a new cell phone." And she then heard this in a voice saying, "You asked me which taxi to get into. I showed you. This passenger has left, lost a cell phone, and you think I told you to get into it so you could steal a cell phone." And so she shouted to the taxi, "Stop. We need to find this woman. I need to return her phone to her." And they all said, "It's crazy. If you find the phone, it's yours to keep." And she said, "No, that's not what Jesus told me." And so she was not only able to return the cell phone, but she was able to use it to give testimony to the passengers and to the driver as well. That evening, when everybody went home, I walked to my lounge to watch the 2 young men who spend weekends with me. They're 11 and 12 years old. And that's the time they normally play these dreadful Xbox games. And as I got to the front, I thought, no, that's not an Xbox game they're playing. I recognize the dialogue. They're watching a film on the life of Jesus. And as I got there, I was right. They were sitting on cushions, noses right up to the TV screen, watching this particular movie. Early the next morning, the younger of the 2 boys said, "I have a problem. My uncle is expecting me to tell a lie. I now know I mustn't do that. But if I don't do that, he will punish me. What am I supposed to do?" That young man is beginning his journey with God. He understands about ethics, something that those adults in government have not yet learned. I rejoice on the power and the change that happens when Christ is present in the lives of people. For me, that's the good news. I need to remember that when I'm overwhelmed by the evil that is around me.
Yeah.
The good news of Jesus.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nico. Really appreciate that. And God bless you.